In this lesson, we're going to build an analysis from scratch using Celonis Studio. Our focus will be on the accounts payable process, and the main objective is to identify missed early payment discounts. We'll explore how these inefficiencies are impacting the business and uncover the root causes behind them. For this analysis, we will use the accounts payable event log and use case handbook included in the resources. Let's start by looking at the KPIs typically used in this type of analysis. In this exercise, we'll focus on the early payment rate to understand the proportion of invoices benefiting from early payment discounts, the value of missed discounts, to quantify the financial impact of missed opportunities, and the average delay of missed early payment discounts to uncover potential inefficiencies in the process. The first component we'll add is a KPI that counts the total number of invoices included in our analysis. To do this, we can use the pre-built KPI available in the list of formulas named case count. This formula automatically counts the total number of existing cases which in this exercise correspond to invoices. Next, we'll add a second KPI, the early payment discount rate. This metric is calculated by dividing the number of invoices paid early by the total number of invoices. So before we create the ratio, we'll first need to define a formula that counts only the invoices paid early, those that qualified for and captured the early payment discount. First, we just need to type the name and then click on the function button to start writing the custom formula. What this formula does is pretty straightforward. It goes through each activity in the process and looks specifically for the process payment step. For those payments, it checks whether the payment date was earlier than the last date the early payment discount was still valid. If that condition is true, it counts that invoice as one where we successfully captured the early payment discount. In the end, the formula gives us the total number of payments where we didn't miss the opportunity to save money through early payment. Creating formulas is always a good practice as the code can be reused in other formulas, and if for whatever reason a change is needed, you only have to update it in one place. The Celonis documentation provides a wealth of resources on the PQL, process query language used to create formulas. Additionally, tools like ChatGPT or Perplexity can assist in writing more complex formulas, making it easier to develop and troubleshoot PQL expressions efficiently. Now let's move on to creating the second formula we need for calculating the early payment discount rate, and that's the total number of invoices. In this case, we'll use the count table function. Just select the appropriate case table from your data model, usually the one that represents each invoice. Once we have this, we can calculate the early payment discount rate by dividing the number of invoices paid early from the first formula we created by the total number of invoices. This will give us a simple ratio that shows how often early payment discounts are being used. After this, we just need to update the KPI component we created earlier by selecting our custom formula for early payment discount rate. Also, don't forget to assign the correct format. In this case, we'll use percentage so the result displays properly. Now, let's move on to the third KPI, the total value of missed early payment discounts. For this, we'll create a new formula that calculates how much money we're leaving on the table when payments are made after the early payment deadline. Let's break it down step by step. We start by analyzing each activity in our data. For any activity labeled process payment, we check whether the actual payment date is after the last eligible date to receive an early payment discount. If the payment was late, we calculate the missed discount by multiplying the invoice amount by the early payment discount rate. That's the amount we lost by not paying on time. If the payment was on time, or the activity isn't process payment, the value is simply 0. Finally, we sum up all those missed discount values across all invoices to get the total. To keep this example simple, we'll use a fixed discount rate, say 2%, but keep I in mind, in real scenarios, this rate might vary per invoice or vendor. To make our formula cleaner and more flexible, we'll use a variable instead of hard-coding the value. So instead of typing 0.02 directly into the formula, we'll create a new variable and use that instead. That way, if the discount rate changes, we only have to update it in one place. Now that our formula for missed early payment discounts is ready, we just need to use it in the third KPI component. For this KPI, we'll use the rounded number format and set the unit to USD, since we're measuring the total dollar value of lost discounts. Let's move on to our final KPI, the average delay for missed early payment discounts. This metric tells us, on average, how many days late the payments were when we missed out on a discount. Here's how the formula works. First, we check for the process payment activity. Then, we compare the actual payment date to the last date eligible for an early payment discount. If the payment was late, we calculate the number of days between the two dates. That's the delay. If the payment was on time or the activity isn't process payment, we ignore it by returning null. Finally, we take the average of all those delays. Once the formula is ready, the final step is to create a new KPI component and use this formula. In this case, the unit we'll use is days, since we're measuring average delay time. Now that our KPIs for this process inefficiency are ready, let's take it a step further by adding a column chart component. The goal here is to visualize missed early payment discounts by vendor, so we can better understand how this inefficiency is impacting our business and where it's hitting hardest. For the dimension, we'll use the vendor attribute from our data model. And for the KPI, we'll use the formula we just created, the one that calculates the total value of missed discounts. Make sure to set the format to rounded number and use USD as the unit, so the values are displayed clearly and consistently. To improve readability, we can sort the bars based on the same KPI. And if you notice that the values are too long and cluttering the chart, you can always switch the format to an abbreviated view for a cleaner, more professional look. Now, let's add another component. This time, it will be an OLAP table. The purpose of this table is to give us detailed, line-by-line visibility into each individual invoice, all in a single view. For the dimensions, we'll include invoice number, vendor name, amount, using the format of your choice, either rounded or full value, average delay, and payment method. These fields will help us understand the context behind each invoice and how it was handled. As for the KPI, we'll include the one we created earlier, the total value of missed early payment discounts. This allows us to see, per invoice, how much was lost when the payment was made late. This kind of detailed table is especially helpful when you want to drill down into specific vendors, payment methods, or invoices to identify patterns or outliers. Now we're going to add two Process Explorer components to help us visually compare how the process behaves in different scenarios. The first Process Explorer will be used as a reference. It will show only the invoices where the early payment discount was successfully applied. This helps us understand what the ideal payment flow looks like. The second Process Explorer will focus on the invoices where the early payment discount was missed. By comparing both views side by side, we'll be able to spot the differences in the process flows and understand what might be causing delays or inefficiencies in some cases. This visual comparison is a powerful way to identify patterns, such as additional steps, bottlenecks, or exceptions that only occur when the discount opportunity is missed. To simplify this exercise, we've included a specific attribute in the event log called payment status. This field tells us whether the invoice was paid before the early payment discount deadline, after the early payment discount deadline but before the due date, on time, or just after the due date, late payment. As a best practice, it's highly recommended to create these kinds of flags or derived fields during the data transformation phase. So, for the first Process Explorer component, we just need to apply a component filter to make sure it only shows invoices where the early payment discount was applied. Now for the second Process Explorer, we'll do the opposite. We'll add a condition that excludes those same invoices, meaning we'll be looking only at the cases where the early payment discount was missed. With both Process Explorers in place and correctly filtered, you can now visually compare the paths taken in each scenario. As a final step, you can always enhance the user experience by adding some visual elements. This could include labels to clearly explain each section, lines or spacers to separate components and improve layout, and even a custom logo to give your analysis a more branded and professional look. These finishing touches help make your analysis not only functional, but also more intuitive and visually appealing for end users. In the next lesson, we'll focus on how to use and get the most value from the analysis we just built, including how to interpret the KPIs, explore the visualizations, and uncover actionable insights to drive real improvements. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next session, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.